The Scottish Cup is the second oldest cup competition in football, only behind the English FA Cup, but as their trophy got lost/stolen, our trophy is actually older. As the competition has been going for over 150 years now, there have been plenty of shock results in the competition. With this video being released on the weekend of the 4th round, which is where we see Premiership teams into the competition, and where we see some surprises because of this, I thought we'd have a look at some of the big upsets that have taken place over the years. 10. Stenhousemuir 2, Aberdeen 0, 1995. Kicking off this list, we go back to the mid-90s with third tier side Stenhousemuir defeating Premier League giants Aberdeen. I say giants, but the 90s was when we saw Aberdeen drop off from their peak in the 80s, with the club struggling in the league so badly in the same season that they finished second bottom, not long after being title challengers. Stenhousemuir meanwhile had the 90s as one of their best eras, with the club winning the Challenge Cup in the 95-96 season, but in the 94-95 season they would reach the Scottish Cup quarter-final. Stenhousemuir started in the first round beating East Stirlingshire 3-0, Arbroath 4-0, a 4-0 win over St Johnstone after a replay before coming up against Aberdeen. A sellout crowd of 3,500 saw Tommy Steele, a dairy farmer, score twice to send the Warriors through, with the result being considered the worst result in Aberdeen's history. For now.
This is the worst day of my life.
The worst day of your life so far.
Stenhousemuir would be given a home draw against Hibs, but would end up losing 4-0 to the Edinburgh side. 9th. Albion Rovers 1, Motherwell 0, 2013. To a Lanarkshire derby that doesn't come around very often, and seeing as there is now an even bigger gap between the two teams, it's unlikely we will see it for a while. We have Albion Rovers knocking out Motherwell. Albion were down in League 2 at the time and were sitting 8th in the table, closer to relegation than promotion to League 1. Motherwell meanwhile were benefiting from the opportunities brought to clubs following the demise of Rangers, with the Steelmen sitting second in the Premiership, which was a Champions League qualification place. Going into the game, Albion had never beaten Motherwell in their entire history, not including the Lanarkshire Cup, which typically sees top flight sides play their reserves. But in the final minute of the game, Gary Phillips would score to send Rovers through. Despite being drawn at home, the game was played at New Douglas Park in Hamilton rather than Clifton Hill and Coatbridge. Albion would be knocked out in the quarterfinals by Rangers after the game was taken to a replay after a late equaliser denied Rovers a win at Ibrox. 8th. Auchinleck Talbot 1, Ayr United 0, 2019. To an Ayrshire derby now, and we have Auchinleck's win against Ayr in the 4th round. Since the 2007-2008 season, whoever won the Junior Cup would be given a place in the Scottish Cup, and with Auchinleck having won a record number of cups, it's no surprise they would have multiple opportunities to cause an upset. Whilst they would defeat part-time teams on a semi-regular basis, Ayr United are a full-time championship side, and in the 2018-19 season were in a surprise battle at the top end following promotion from League 1 the previous season. The West of Scotland side, however, would see law student Craig McCracken score a late header to win it for Talbot, securing their first ever win against a professional team. Auchinleck would be knocked out in the next round following a 4-0 loss against Hearts at Tynecastle. Auchinleck in the 2021-22 season would knock League 1 side Hamilton out of the cup at the 3rd round, but would be defeated 5-0 at home by Hearts in what was the 3rd meeting between the sides out of the 9 appearances for Talbot in the Scottish Cup at the time. 7th. Kelty Hearts 1, St Johnstone 0. To Fife now, and we have League 2 Kelty knocking out Premiership St Johnstone back in 2022. Kelty were the newest side in the SPFL, having earned promotion from the Lowland League after defeating Brecon in the playoffs. Their first season was going well, with the club sitting top of the league, somewhere they would end up staying for the rest of the season. St Johnstone meanwhile had won a historic double the previous season, winning both the League Cup and Scottish Cup, but had seen their squad decimated and were struggling in the league, sitting bottom and in the midst of a 9-game losing run. This would become 10 games however, as Callum Higginbotham would score in extra time to see Kelty through to the 5th round for the first time in their history. Kelty would face another Premiership side in St Mirren, but weren't able to repeat the feat, with a 4-0 defeat in Paisley. 6th, Fraserburgh 1, Dundee 0, 1959. Going way back in time now when we have Fraserburgh beating Dundee. Fraserburgh are one of the top teams in the Highland League and in the 1958-59 season would lose out on the title after losing a playoff against Rovers after they finished on the same points. They didn't separate on goal difference, otherwise Fraserburgh win the league with a goal difference that was better than Rovers' by 14. Dundee, meanwhile, had appeared in the 1952 Scottish Cup final and were a top flight side, finishing 4th in the league this season. It was Fraserburgh, however, who would earn a historic victory, as Johnny Strachan would score the only goal to see the Brock through in what was the first ever victory for a Highland League side against a top flight side. This game took place in the first round, which, considering how late Premiership teams come in now, is a bit strange, but Fraserburgh would lose 4-3 at home against Stirling Albion in the next round. 5th, Clyde 2, Celtic 1, 2006. This is the first of 3 games involving one of the big sides in Glasgow. Seeing as it's an odd number, it means one of them appears twice and the other once. I cannot wait to be accused of being biased. Anyway, 2006 saw First Division side Clyde take on Premiership leaders Celtic. Clyde were recovering from financial difficulties while Celtic was set to give Roy Keane his debut in what was seen as a nice and easy game to introduce him to Scottish football. This would not prove to be the case, however, as Craig Bryson and Eddie Malone would score for Clyde, seeing them take a 2-0 lead at half-time. Maciej Surawski would score for Celtic, but it would not be enough as the Bully Wee would knock out the Glasgow Giants. The 4th round would be the end of Clyde's cup run as they would be defeated by 3 spending Gretna 4-0 after a replay. 4th, Berwick Rangers 1, Rangers 0, 1967. Scottish clubs in the early days of football would play in the English FA Cup, with Queen's Park finishing as runners-up twice. English clubs, meanwhile, never went the opposite direction. Berwick Rangers are an exception, however, as for Berwick being just 3 miles from the border, and there being very little in regards to football until you hit Newcastle, Berwick Rangers have been a part of the Scottish football pyramid since 1905, and became full league members in 1951. Rangers, meanwhile, are giants of the Scottish game, with them being the most successful club in the country until they lost that title to Celtic in the 2024 League Cup final. 1967 would see Rangers make it to the Cup Winners' Cup final, and as current holders of the Scottish Cup, were favourites to beat a Berwick side who just a few years prior, Rangers were trying to kick out of the Football League due to their poor attendances and performances. Berwick would have the last laugh, however, as Sammy Reid would score the only goal for Berwick, seeing Rangers knocked out at the first round. Berwick would be knocked out in the second round away against Hibs 1-0, but this result is still considered the greatest result in the club's history. Something that doesn't seem like changing soon, seeing as they now compete in the Lowland League. 3rd, Celtic 1, Inverness Caledonian Thistle 3, 2000. Hey, it's Celtic again. Now you know what insults to throw at me. I also get to talk about Inverness again, my favourite Highland club that I haven't spent enough time documenting. Anyway, back in February 2000, Celtic were in a bit of a crisis, with John Barnes as manager. While they did go on to win the League Cup, that was after Barnes had been sacked, with this game against a second tier side being the final nail in the coffin. Inverness had not long been in the league, having been formed through the merger of Caledonian and Inverness Thistle in 1994, and were making their way up the divisions. Nobody, however, expected Inverness to go down to Glasgow and defeat Celtic, despite how bad the Glasgow side were at the time. Inverness had other ideas, however, as Barry Wilson put the Highland side 1-0 up after 16 minutes. Celtic would instantly equalise with Mark Burkill after a minute, but an own goal would see Inverness retake the lead after 24 minutes. Half-time would see Barnes lose the dressing room completely, with Mark Viduka refusing to come out of the dressing room. Paul Sheeran would deliver the final blow from the penalty spot, and Inverness would go through, leading to the headline, Super Cali Go Ballistic, Celtic are atrocious. Inverness would be knocked out in the next round by Aberdeen and would finish 4th in the second tier, while Celtic would finish 2nd in the league, 21 points behind Rangers. 2nd, Brora Rangers 2, Hearts 1, 2021. Back to the strange time that was the COVID season now, where we have a game that had no fans. This game saw a clash between two sides top of their respective leagues as Brora Rangers of the Highland League took on Championship leaders Hearts in the second round in March. Again, COVID was a weird time. Brora were already declared champions after only playing 3 games, and Hearts were on their way to becoming champions in the second tier, but it was Brora who took the lead after 12 minutes. Christoph Berra would equalise in the 70th minute, but Brora would retake the lead with Martin McLean scoring what would be the winner in the 75th minute. Despite this embarrassing result, Hearts would go on to win the league by a country mile, while Brora would be knocked out by Stranraer in the next round. First, Darvel 1, Aberdeen 0, 2023. There was no other option, was there? Darvel, in the West of Scotland Premier League, faced off against Premiership side Aberdeen, whose manager Jim Goodwin was under a lot of pressure. Darvel were inspired by Mick Kennedy and his Soldiers of Love team talk, while Goodwin was doing whatever had led him into a sackable position, and this showed that as after 19 minutes, the East Ayrshire side would take the lead through Jordan Kirkpatrick. Aberdeen would throw the kitchen sink at Darvel, but the West of Scotland side would hold on to secure a famous 1-0 victory. Somehow, Jim Goodwin wasn't sacked after this, but he wouldn't last long as he would be removed from his position after a 6-0 defeat to Hibs in their next game. Darvel meanwhile would go on to be defeated 5-1 at home to Falkirk in the next round, but would fail to win the West of Scotland Premier League, losing out to Beef Juniors. Kennedy meanwhile would leave Darvel at the end of the season to join East Kilbride, who this season managed to knock out Championship sides Airdrie and Ayr in the Challenge Cup, but were defeated by Falkirk in the Scottish Cup third round. That's all for this video, and of course I hope you enjoyed, well, as much as you could if your team was the victim of these results. What is your opinion on the greatest upset? Are there any that I miss? Hearts are once again playing a team that is at top of the higher league and their first 2 letters are BR, so that might happen again. Anyway, liking, sharing and subscribing is greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.